Is Trudeau's tenure coming to an end? Yet another loyalist dumps Trudeau. Will Trump storm uproot Trudeau? The Great Canadian Circus.
Justin Trudeau, ladies and gentlemen, is in deep trouble. The abrupt resignation of his Deputy and Finance Minister, Chrystia Freeland, has come as a huge shock to Prime Minister Trudeau's leadership. Chrystia has been a Trudeau loyalist, considered one of his most prominent ministers and a close ally. She has now criticized his economic policies and suggested a lack of trust in his leadership. Her departure has reignited calls within the Liberal Party for Justin Trudeau to step down, clearly exposing the fault lines within the party. Dominic LeBlanc has now been appointed as the next finance minister. But Chrystia, remember, criticized what she described as costly political gimmicks like the GST holiday and urged fiscal caution, particularly as Canada faces the possibility of a tariff war with Donald Trump coming in. His estranged ally and Khalistan supporter, Jagmeet Singh, has joined in and demanded Justin Trudeau's resignation as well. Listen in.
Today, I'm calling on Justin Trudeau to resign. He has to go. Right now, Canadians are struggling with the cost of living. I hear it everywhere I go. People cannot find a home that they can afford. They can't buy their groceries. And on top of that, we have Trump threatening tariffs at 25%, which put hundreds and thousands of Canadian jobs at risk. And instead of focusing on these issues, Justin Trudeau and the Liberals are focused on themselves. They're fighting themselves instead of fighting for Canadians. And for that reason, today I'm calling on Justin Trudeau to resign. He has to go.
Now, Trudeau has refused to step down, but he stands at a critical juncture in his political career. Let's try and get an understanding of what's been happening in Canada and what lies ahead for Justin Trudeau. On Global Mirror, I'm joined by Mr. Dean Baxendale. He's an international columnist on geopolitical affairs. Mr. Dean Baxendale, thank you very much for speaking with us on Mirror Now. First question. What's been happening in Canada? Justin Trudeau refuses to step down. There are fault lines that have been exposed within his own Liberal Party. And now there is some sort of political uncertainty that Justin Trudeau and Canada is grappling with.
Well, this government has lurched from one crisis to the next over the past few years. As we've exposed foreign interference in the Canadian elections, the Hogue Commission, which was set up to investigate and to look deeply into a sad state of affairs in Canada, which ultimately has played out in diaspora politics across many different groups, including Sikhs, Hindus, Chinese diaspora communities, and others inside Canada. We see a scenario where our economy has been teetering on the brink of recession, and the government's inability to actually bring forward a positive both message and economic plan to take us out of this quagmire. So that is sort of what the background is. And now we see it playing out with one of his most loyal ministers, Chrystia Freeland, who has resigned. But this was not to be expected. He was ostensibly orchestrating this by coveting the former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney to come in and be finance minister. So ultimately, her sharpening her knives and using her resignation to send a clear political message both to those within the Liberal caucus and the Liberal Party that it's time to move on, but also send a clear message to Canadians that Prime Minister Trudeau is well past his before prime date.
Dean Baxendale, if, as you say, this was inevitable that, Justin Trudeau did expect and rather, led to this resignation by his close ally, Chrystia Freeland, there were differences, I believe, over budget proposals that she'd given, the economic policies that she was coming up with. Now that she's gone, What is the solution and what is the way ahead that Justin Trudeau is providing, if not what she was proposing?
Well, it's only been, less than 24 hours since that resignation. The fall economic statement ultimately, which was in place, had to be delivered. You have, the leaders of a G7 government in total chaos. This does not send a great signal to financial markets, nor the world of the ability in which for Justin Trudeau to govern. So moving forward, I think he's looking through, through this crisis over the past 24 hours, talking with his closest advisors, looking at his political future, but in the short term, stabilizing, the government, at least from the standpoint of swearing in Dominic LeBlanc, the minister, public safety minister, and a minister of all other things. He ultimately seems to be the de facto prime minister in waiting while Justin Trudeau looks at his political fortunes, which really are for him to resign at this point and move on, declare a leadership race so that we can move on. As for Jagmeet Singh, he's not going to do anything until at least February 1st. That's when his pension will kick in, $66,000 a year. So he certainly doesn't want to jeopardize that by bringing the government down before February 1st. His bold words, speak of the kind of political opportunism that Jagmeet Singh has used for many years, and ultimately force his government to adopt policies that I don't think have been good for the fiscal stability of the country and have had us spend well beyond our means.
It's interesting that you mentioned Jagmeet Singh, Dean Baxendale, because when we talk about politics, there's a lot of perception that is created. And like you said, Justin Trudeau wanted to send out a message in the resignation of Chrystia Freeland. But so is the messaging that has come out of the Jagmeet Singh camp asking for the resignation of Justin Trudeau. And that is also sort of sent out a message. First, he withdrew from the government. Now he's asking for his resignation. In terms of the popularity that has really reduced for Justin Trudeau in the past few months, how do you see this really playing out? The entire perception game, which way is it inclined?
Well, that's a great question. And, if I had a crystal ball on these things, I'd be a millionaire. I think the reality is that, Jagmeet is playing his politics. He has to placate his left-leaning supporters in the country. Quite frankly, I think he would lose seats if we go to an election right now. So he is playing his political fortunes. Trudeau has to see how he can bring, a number of people into the party to help rejuvenate it. That's going to be a tough sell. And so he's going to play this out over the next little while, trying to find an escape hatch where he doesn't look totally disheveled and disgraced in his resignation. But I think that's going to be a difficult task given these events over the past 24 hours.
Do you think he's going to resign, Dean? There are calls for his resignation and within his own party as well, not just Jagmeet Singh. Do you see that happening in the near future, Justin Trudeau resigning?
Yes, I do. Actually, in my column, which I just filed, just before I went on air with you, can that resignation be far off? I think he's going to look at his options over the Christmas period. The legislature will no longer sit as of tomorrow. It will be adjourned until January 27th, when I expect that we will hear from him and putting a leadership contest or race in place for his replacement. So yes, I do see this happening imminently at this point in time.
That's going to be hugely interesting, Dean Baxendale, if and when that happens. And when that happens, of course, it's going to be even deeper political crisis or instability, as we may call it, in Canada. But let me shift our focus back to the finance ministry and why this entire tussle broke out between Justin Trudeau and Chrystia Freeland. And I want to talk to you about Dominic LeBlanc, who's now been appointed as the finance minister. Why has he been appointed as the finance minister? What does he bring to the table? Why is it that Justin Trudeau trusted him in replacing Chrystia Freeland, who was one of his closest allies?
Well, I think Dominic LeBlanc has been one of the key Trudeau soldiers for many years, very loyal, but also very competent. One of the few very, what I would call competent people within the Trudeau caucus at this particular point in time. Of course, Justin has managed to scare most of them away. So Justin brings, Dominic LeBlanc brings his experience in public safety, his understanding of various government ministries. And so I think that's what he brings to bear. But the economic statement was already put in place, you know, with $1.4 billion for border security, which is supposed to placate the Trump administration, which it won't. The $1.8 billion or so for the GST holiday, which is, you know, let's buying vote politics by the Trudeau government, which is one of the reasons why Chrystia Freeland made the decision to resign. We need the money to potentially fight a tariff war with Donald Trump, which I don't think it will happen because it would also create a great deal of havoc and an inflation in the United States. Canada is America's biggest trading partner. Our finances, though, are not good, with a $62 billion deficit is astronomical, well above forecast, almost 50% above the original forecast. So we have some things to get in order, and we can't get to the polls soon enough here in Canada.
You know, talking about Donald Trump, Dean Baxendale, what concerns prevail in Canada? You know, there are, of course, as you said, tariff concerns, and Donald Trump has spoken about it as well. In fact, Donald Trump has been quintessentially Donald Trump in the past few days, and he's even trolled Justin Trudeau on social media, calling him the governor of the state of Canada. What sort of, future do you see between US and Canada, and of course the relationship that will prevail between Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump?
Well, obviously Canada has a long-standing relationship with the United States. We, still do have the longest undefended border in the world. It is a partnership, though, wrought with a certain degree of uncertainty, given Trump's promises to his base on a number of key issues, which include solving the fentanyl crisis, repatriating jobs to America, making America strong again in terms of its manufacturing base, reshoring of the supply chain to America. But Canada has to play a significant and important role. We are America's largest we export the oil and gas to America. They need Canada. We are the 12th biggest trading partner to U.S. states, and so our relationship is deep. It's entwined. We're part of the supply chain. I think Donald Trump wants to have a solid, strong relationship. He also wants to put Canada in its place as far as he's concerned. But I think Canada and our officials need to push back on this, again, reemphasize our longstanding partnership, and it's better for North America to be a fortress economically than to isolate your allies in particularly geopolitical times of trouble, as we see the Russian, China, Iranian advances, although we certainly got some good news in the Middle East with Assad's regime falling. However, that creates another geopolitical vacuum that needs to be filled. So Canada needs to really just stand up for who we are, what we are, the strength of our partnership, the integration between our two economies, and the reason why we are in a solid partnership now and in the future. And there's no one in Canada, me included, that wants to become the 51st state of the United States.
Well, Dean Baxendale, do you also think that Pierre Poilievre is somebody who can tackle all of these challenges that Canada is going through, as he poses himself to be?
I think Pierre Poilievre is the right answer at this particular time for Canada. I think his government in waiting and key individuals who have come up the ranks over the past few years are solid individuals on foreign policy, on finance, on immigration, and I think they have a vision for turning the country around. That I think it's going to be welcome medicine for all of us here in Canada. It is unfortunate that the Trudeau government has not been able to address a number of these systemic issues, including national economic security, the immigration mess that they created on wide fronts across the country. So I think Pierre Poilievre does offer Canadians and his party some strong answers to what ails us, and that is for economic stability and a vision that puts consumers first and puts all Canadians at the table for economic growth and security in the future.
Okay. All right. We'll leave it there. Dean Baxendale, let's wait and watch how the Canadian politics moves forward. Thank you very much for joining us on Global Mirror and giving us a wider understanding of what has been going on with the Justin Trudeau government. Thank you very much, Dean Baxendale.
Thank you for having me.